Hello and welcome to this, the first of a new series of Purple Ivy brown bag lunches. Since we only have half an hour, we will launch straight in. My name is Rebecca Oliver and I'm a Sustainability Strategist at Purple Ivy. And I'd like my guests to introduce themselves. Max?
Hello, everyone. My name is Max Zetterström. I'm the Group Treasurer at Boliden Group. We are a European metals company active in metals in mines and smelting, producing copper, zinc, nickel, and so on.
Thank you very much. And Luca?
Yes, my name is Luca and Lorenzo. Hi to everyone and a pleasure to be here. I'm head of sustainability and mandate at the Nordic Investment Bank. We basically are a bank operating in the Nordic Baltic region, providing long-term lending for sustainable projects. So again, pleasure to be here, Rebecca.
Thank you very much. And the title of this conversation, how to energize, how sustainable finance can energize your sustainability strategy, it seems to really have hit the spot. Judging by the response we've had over 140 expressing interest. And I suspect that this has something to do with how the enormous surge in focus and regulation of ESG has generated so much activity in the world of finance. Particularly in banks and investment funds, but really the whole branch, the whole sector. But for the companies that are the focus of this new scrutiny, I think they're getting a little bit less attention. And for Purple Ivy, it's the companies that we see making big transition plans and financing them with the help of banks and investors. So my first question to you two is, how do you see sustainable finance energizing sustainability strategies, and why do you think so many people have been interested in this conversation? I'll give that question first to Max.
All right, thank you. Well, that's a good question, and I think it has to do with how sustainable finance actually becomes a complement to the real world performance and the actual ESG standards of any company or organization. So sustainable finance becomes a tool. It becomes a way to sort of highlight the capacity and the performance, the real world performance of a company, and it can sort of use become the extension of a company's sustainability strategy, really. So.
And Luca, what's your thought on that topic?
Absolutely, tend to agree with Max on this one. I mean, sustainable finance ultimate purpose is to achieve impact and change in the real economy, right? So it is down to the activities and the strategies in the corporates and in the industry. Now, sustainability strategy is more and more kind of linking up very strongly with your overall business strategy. And that's, I think, is a very good trend. And then sustainable finance complements that, right? So it gives you the right financing, the capital, the instruments, and you have the various green bonds, sustainability linked bonds, loans, green loans, and so on, that basically link up the financing of your activities, if you're a corporate, of your actions on the ground towards sustainable development. So the two go very well together, and they reinforce each other. That's the beauty of it.
Thank you. And so I'm actually curious as to what our listeners are thinking on this topic, because you've chosen to come and listen to us. So please write your comments, thoughts, and any questions you might have in the comments, and I will see them, and we can either include them in the conversation or pose a question to Max or to Luca. But moving on, while we're waiting for our listeners to tell us what they think, to me, this is all about relationships. It's about a new conversation, a new relationship between companies and capital. And I know that companies that I've been speaking to have had a new kind of phone call from their bank. And so I thought I'd ask Luca to tell us a little bit about how the way you are relating to the companies that NIB are investing in. How is that relationship changing for you? And then I'll ask the same question to Max, so we get this sense of how we have an evolving relationship, maybe romance, happening in the transition to sustainability. Luca.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yes, romance is a good word, I guess. Let's see. No, absolutely. I mean, maybe the Nordic Investment Bank, we have always, being a mandate-driven bank, we've always been interested in sustainability and in these topics. But if I think broadly about the evolution that has happened, let's say over the last decade, and that has accelerated over the 5 years, I think there are fundamentally three elements that have developed. As I said, sustainability considerations have always been a top priority for us, and I think for our clients as well. So in our dialogue, but in the recent years, these considerations have moved more and more into the core of the business strategy of our clients. So the dialogue has moved really from discussing, what could be your footprint on environmental items to what is your business strategy and how are you part of a solution and a longer term journey. I think that is one thing that we pick up in our dialogues with clients. The second observation is that because of this, the counterparties, let's say the people in the client that we speak to, are slightly changing. Again, it used to be more the environmental teams and the sustainability teams, and now more and more these dialogues and these topics are being discussed with treasurers, Max, with CFOs, if not directly with CEOs. So you see the importance and the audience and the target, the links between the banks and the client are happening at different levels. And then I think the final item is a little bit the nature of the dialogue. It used to be maybe more a check type of dialogue, and now it's more of a joint journey type of dialogue. So what is it that you're thinking of doing when we talk to the client? What's your sustainability and business strategy? And how can we, with a sustainable finance instrument, help you in that journey, right? So it's a much more joined up dialogue. Call it romance if you want.
Well, I love the image of the journey, and I think holding hands, walking along a beach is part of that. But I think we'll park the romance. But I think also for companies, I'm wondering, Max, there's a change in the dialogue externally between company and bank, company and investor. How are there changes internally as well to the kind of internal conversations that are happening?
Yes, very much so. I mean, if I just briefly also touch on the journey you both talk about. I mean, it's sort of seeing the change in banks coming to speak to Boliden about specific topics, maybe to learn and to hear how is Boliden working with sustainability and how do you look at this? Maybe sort of more narrow pockets of knowledge. Now banks are coming to us full of the sustainability knowledge and language, not only speaking finance but speaking sustainability, and we as a company have to keep up with that. I mean, I'm talking about a company's finance team also have to be able to speak the language of sustainability and understand that, and we do that by working closely together with our ESG organization, our sustainability organization in Boliden, and I don't see there being any other way for any company. It's deeply intertwined, and it is the new reality for for the banking space and for companies.
And we've actually had an interesting question from one of our listeners, Shrikant Ramakrishnan, and it actually does. This question is about measuring, and it sort of links to this change in dialogue from a checking dialogue to a joint understanding of a journey. But the checking is still there, and it's getting more and more in terms of reporting. The new Sustainable Finance Reporting Directive, and a lot of new data points are being asked for. So I just want to check back with you two. I used the word energize in the title, but would the word stress be a better one when you start looking at all of these reporting requirements? Is the stress going to overshadow the positive energy? What do you think, Luca?
Well, I would hope not, first of all, but it is a good observation that, of course, especially maybe here in Europe, where we have our regulation type of approach more than in other parts of the world. Sustainability, of course, needs some metrics and needs some measurements in order to really validate the steps and the actions that are being taken. And that comes, I think, to companies directly sometimes. And it comes through us because we also get some requirements to know what we're doing with our portfolios. And of course, the only way to do that is then to ask our clients to put the data. So you do have, I agree, a little bit of a data flow and metrics flow. Again, to me, the importance there is to keep it material, is a key word, and relevant to the business of the client, and stick to the few metrics that are really relevant. And then again, together with the client, in that our experience is positive. Even in defining the metrics, in defining the targets, in defining the measurement, that can be a joint dialogue with the client. We can help each other and not forget the ultimate goal here, which is not just to measure, but it's to actually have the impact, right? So the measurement is a means to get the change that we need to get towards sustainability. And I think with most of the clients, in that sense, we have a positive dialogue. Not too stressed, I would argue. But there is, let me just add, but there is, of course, a sense of urgency, right, in this transition. So that's what goes without saying.
Just before I give the word to Max, I just want to ask one last quick thing. I liked what you said about defining the data points together with the client, but I'm also hearing a lot about consistency in reporting, trying to get some kind of an agreed set of data points. And isn't there a danger that if you have a blanket approach to collecting data, that you lose the specificity that reflects the journey of the client for your corporate loan? What's the balance between agreeing a whole swathe of data points across the finance industry and asking for specific data that reflect the specific client?
You want me to?
Just a quick question. Yeah. Is it going to be a challenge?
No, it's going to be a balancing act, right? Of course, we need comparability in order to compare from a financial and banking perspective, clients within a sector, and to some extent also to compare sectors, right? Because we all have to contribute, and different sectors will have to do possibly different contributions because they are in different contexts and also regional differences, right? So we need somehow to be able to compare, and I think that is very important. But to me, the ultimate is really just to have transparency, to be honest. So as long as you're transparent, you can have a set of measures which are there for comparability, but then you could also have some specificities and some metrics that you then discuss directly with the client. And it's this balancing act, as long as it fulfills the purpose to measure the change that we all agree we have to take, then I think we're in a good space.
And I think that answers the question from Shrikant, that we would just want to measure the change that's happening. Max, how are you thinking in Boliden about reporting and the change in reporting requirements?
Well, I think you can choose to you can choose to get stressed or choose to get energized. I think that really depends on a bit on your position. I mean, what your it doesn't have to do very much with, well, it has to do with that, with your ambitions and your journey, but also being able to clearly explain what you are doing today. So I'm coming back to the real world performance, because we as a company, we're facing a lot of reporting requirements, and some of the frustration or stress may be around the fact that there isn't really a very good alignment on standards, because we are all for transparency and comparability, and the sooner we can get to that becoming as efficient as possible, the better. I think depending on who you are, you will either feel energized or stressed. I think in Boliden's case, I think we feel energized, and we feel that there's really a story to tell about our company's purpose. I mean, what is our role in society? And if you're struggling to get that communication across, that could, in the long run, possibly generate some stress, because as you both mentioned, there are many interests in this, and all looking for ultimately comparability. So the amount of information and the amount of questions we have to provide is quite astounding. But
yeah. Well, we actually have a question just for you, Max, coming in from Connor Noda. Max, internally, how do you incentivize Boliden to pursue sustainable projects or to incorporate sustainability into capital investments? Is there a metric that you're using internally to measure sustainability impact?
Yes, I mean, it's not something that has to be forced on the company as in finance, group finance, saying this. Everyone seems to think this is terribly important, so I hope we are too. It is what we do every day. So there isn't any activity to really having to highlight that to anyone. So when it comes to measurability, yes, I mean there is in Boliden a way to weigh environmental impact, where so when you look at sort of assessing whether to do an investment or not, it may be that you can weigh certain environmental criteria against each other. For example, talking about metal equivalence. So depending on what the result of your investment most likely will be, such an investment can become prioritized and therefore happen sooner. So yeah.
Excellent. And actually, we have another question coming in from Clive Allison, actually a former colleague of mine at Unilever. And this goes right to the core of what we work with at Purple Ivy, which is integrating sustainability into the business completely. And Clive's question is, what do each speakers see as the core of the business case for sustainability at their respective companies? So Luca, What's the core of the business case for sustainability at NIB?
Well, maybe I will. At NIB, it's relatively easy actually, because it is at the core of our mandate, and we are a mandate-driven bank. So in that sense, I think it's implicit, right, in our existence. But maybe I'll give a bit of a wider answer to banks, or my perception of banking. I think the core of it is that we have global challenges and global targets, and I think we all agree, whether you're in the finance sector or whether you're in the real economy with our clients and companies and corporates like Max, and actually doing hardcore activities. We all agree that we need to somehow fulfill these targets, and that that's the direction the world has chosen to take and has to take, to be honest. And therefore, ultimately, the core business, if you want, the business case is, I wouldn't say it's a license to operate, because that sounds too negative, and too risk. But the point is that we have and we will change, and therefore it's your choice to resist that change or to actually see opportunities and see your role in that change. And the moment you see it in the second part, then I think you see the business case of it. I hope that answers. It's a very good question, but maybe.
Well, I was listening to a podcast from Standard & Poor this morning, and one of the speakers said something which I thought was quite powerful. And he just said, "That's where the money wants to go at the moment." Yeah. That's where the money wants to go. And I think that, as a bank, you have to help move the money where it wants to go. And as a company, you have to make the money want to be with you. But anyway, the same question to Max. What's your, what do you see as the core of the business case for sustainability at Boliden?
Well, I think you have to look at the purpose and vision statement of Boliden. I think there is more to say about that than there is time in this session. But Boliden says that our purpose is to provide metals essential to improve society for generations to come. And to do that, our vision is to be the most climate friendly and respected metal provider in the world. And I think if you can achieve that, you've done the right things on many levels. I mean, the world is on a journey to change many things, and of course, Boliden as a company is part of that. But we see and understand that we are actually part of that. We're actually part of that solution. But we have to be responsible in doing that. So we're sharing the work of everyone else.
And I might just add to that, and maybe I can be a little bit more drastic because I'm not representing a company. But when I think about what's happening, if you look at the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, looking at climate risk to the bottom line of companies, and if you look at what the EU is doing with the taxonomy, and then we look at these journeys, my sense is that there will be some companies delivering the essential elements of the economy at the end of that journey when we are moving forward in sustainability. And some companies won't be there. And they won't be there for a number of reasons. And there will be reasons that have been identified in the task force, looking at the task force process. Either the customers will have chosen not to buy their products, or the banks have chosen not to invest in them, or the regulations have said that they are not part of our economy anymore, because they're too damaging. So I think the business case is almost one of survival, but in a positive sense. be the metals company that will be delivering metals in 2050. So that's how I see this, and which is why I'm excited about how sustainable finance is really putting a turbo engine on sustainability, according to me. Now, I want to just have a little bit more focus on the journey. And I know, Luca, you and I talked about transition plans that you're looking, and you said right at the beginning, you're not just looking at the data and the measurements, you're also looking at how the data fits within a planned journey, a transition plan. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for when you look at the journey that your customers are describing, so that you can understand this is a journey we want to be part of?
Sure. Again, I link it back. I mean, it's maybe to some extent, it's not that different if you think about what you have always asked as a bank to clients, because you always want to have a solid and forward-looking business strategy, right? That's core of banking. So now when we think sustainability, right, and how it fits in, that's exactly the point. You're not just going to take a sustainability strategy and a business strategy as two elements and looking at them as separate, but you actually want to see how they work together. So you want to see how the business model and the business strategy is incorporating the key material issues relating to sustainability, could be or ESG, could be also social, that come in, and how the business strategy is being tailored to take account of that. And you do that both long term. The tricky part there is that, of course, it's forward-looking. This conversation is forward-looking. It's super exciting, but at the same time, that makes it very difficult to assess and evaluate, right? Because it's basically made, let's be honest, on somewhat promises. And so that's where, when you discuss targets, when you discuss what are your core elements, you also then want to start, if you want to go to the next level of detail, is how do you actually plan to do this, right? So you see what I mean, right?
Yeah. I think that's a fascinating last input. So I was wanting to give that question to Max, but I suddenly noticed that our half hour is zipping away, and it's been such fun. So maybe I'll have a 30-second last thoughts from Max and then Luca, and then I will round off and tell you about our next session. So first, last comments on 30 seconds on, or maybe 10 seconds on your last thoughts, Max.
It's back to school. If you're not already on the sustainability train, get on it. It's not stopping.
Yeah, thank you, Luca.
Fully agree. The train is moving, and I think what I like the most is that I think we're all on the same train, and that's what, from a banking perspective to a client, we are having very good dialogues to work at it together. Excellent.
Thank you so much. And so our next lunch is on the 3rd of June, which is next week, and I'll be talking to Cecilia Nord, who is the Director of Responsible Sourcing at Electrolux, and we'll be taking this topic, this conversation, even more into detail about what companies can really do with sustainable financing. So I'd like to say thank you to Luca, thank you to Max, thank you to all for coming here to eat your lunch with us. Goodbye and see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.